Good morning, Karoo. It is 9:10 a.m. in the south of France, which means it's 2:10 a.m. in Winona, Minnesota on the 2nd of February. I cut together a bunch of driving footage because I wanted to just get a video up, and this is the easy way to do it. Check out that train. So I was driving 130 kilometers an hour at the time that train came flying by me like that. That's high-speed rail. Anyway, we're having a great trip. It involves lots of travel, and this particular trip is most similar to the ones we do in Wales, but it's odd. I'll tell you how odd it is in just a second, but I want to tell you about this particular clip. That landscape that you see there is the landscape that inspired one of Dante's levels of hell in the Inferno. And apparently at the time, it had all been quarried out, so there was very little vegetation. So anyway, little piece of trivia there. So the trip has been very busy, and as with many of our trips to Wales, this is coming out past that same area. We stopped. There's a big fortress up on top of the rock there that's one of the biggest we've ever seen, carved alternately out of the rock and built on top of it. I think it's called Beu, the Chateau Le Beu, Beaux, if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, as I was saying, this trip is just loaded with places to visit and getting there. So it's very, very busy, dealing with the jet lag and getting up and driving and then visiting a place and then finding food. The other interesting thing about the trip is that nothing functions in the south of France in January and into February. So we are literally at the most dead time of year here. And I think it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that only 1 in 10 restaurants or shops is open. Yesterday we went to 4 different former Templar walled villages, fortified villages, and within the fortified villages there's housing and shops, and not a single one was open. And it was a rainy day. It was a dreary day, and we literally saw maybe a dozen people in all 4 villages walking around, combined. So yeah, it's been very quiet, which we kind of like. It's very atmospheric. You're not constantly dealing with, you're not cheek to jowl with other tourists. And honestly, we've been here, what, a week now, Sarah? Mm-hmm. And we've really only seen a couple other American tourists. Basically, we went to a Coliseum in Arles, and we saw some American tourists there, and that's it. By the way, these tree-lined streets we thought were really cool. This particular road, we were driving out into someplace in rural southern France, and it was 30 miles of on and off these old trees lining the road, clearly planted before the need for paved roads. Although we did see, you'll see an example here shortly of a newer section of road where they've planted a few trees in a similar fashion, but those are mostly older. So I'm rambling a bit here because I'm running short on time. So last night I cut all this together, and I was going to try to do the voiceover, but it was late and I was exhausted, and so I just went to bed. And this morning we're driving to Carcassonne and going to spend the night there tonight, and then we're heading north up to Paris on Monday. So, and then it's 2 nights in Paris, and then we're coming home. So it's been very busy. I haven't had a lot of time. I've thought about making videos, but we also have spotty internet. So I'm not sure when this video will get uploaded. I know it won't happen this morning, but maybe tonight in Carcassonne we'll have good internet. So this is an interesting thing. Ran into this driving. I don't know if you noticed there was a temporary stoplight there counting down, and when it starts blinking yellow, it's my turn to go. And I start going, and I couldn't see that car coming until I was already out past the truck, and I was looking at the people, so I didn't notice he was exactly right there. And when I did see him, I thought, oh, he's going to pull over, but he clearly wasn't thinking about pulling over. And I didn't find out until I got through here that his light stopping him is way further up here. So clearly there was something weird about the timing of the lights. And I don't know if you noticed, there was another car that came through even after my light turned blinking yellow for me to go. So lots of interesting things driving. Here's another one. I love driving around on these rural roads in, well, I know I've talked to you about in the UK, but it's been an equally enjoyable experience here in France. And while I say that, you know, Sarah and I are very busy, we often will just stop to see something. You know, we drive along and we'll see something that looks interesting. We'll see a castle ruin, and we'll just pull over and stop and go check it out. And I really like the freedom to do that. It does, like I say, make for these sort of packed days. And trips like this one really do feel like work to me, because I take hundreds of pictures and I try to clean them up and catalog them every evening. And it takes me basically 2 hours every evening to load all my pictures from various cameras onto the computer. And then I try to process a few of them so that we can upload them to share with Sarah's readers. So it very much is, there's pressure of needing to get things done on this trip. So it's not really a vacation. I love it. I love traveling like this, but it's not a vacation like when we go to Puerto Vallarta and I'm just, you know, I can go out for long walks and then read and kind of goof off. So this that you see on the left there is a town, a walled city called, and I'm going to pronounce it as if it were Spanish, but it's not. It's Aqua Morte, which means the stagnant waters. And it was, this was built, it's a fortified city that was built by King Louis and then his son Philippe. And it was the jumping off point for most of the Crusades. So King Edward came down here, and actually he was only a prince at the time, and staged his crusade heading south and sailed out of Aqua Morte. So it's kind of a fascinating site. One of the reasons that we came to this area in France is because Sarah's latest book incorporates the Templars into it. And that big tower that you just saw on the left, oh, yeah, watch this video while I talk about that. We had an interesting experience. Anyway, the Templars, King Philip basically went into debt to the Templars to fund all his wars and his extravagant spending, and eventually just decided that he was going to wipe out the order and take all their money. And so that big tower that you saw me pass a little while ago was in fact a place where they imprisoned, what, 45 Templars? Is that what? Yeah, Sarah's nodding. And Philip apparently coordinated this destruction of the Templars. He sent letters all over his kingdom to people wherever the Templars were. and directed them not to be opened until a specific date so that the word wouldn't get out. And then, oh, there we go. She hit me. Um, and then they opened the letters and they basically arrested all the Templars and he accused them of all kinds of crimes. So none of which seem to have been substantiated, actually. But interestingly, I guess not surprisingly, many people still believe that the Templar organization was corrupt with a lot of the crimes he accused them of. Now, maybe they were, I don't know. But it is interesting that, he clearly had, and I suspect that the reality was probably somewhere in the middle where some of the Templars were involved in some of the crimes that he accused them of. But the only reason he cared was because he wanted their money. Anyway, fascinating. So on top of this hill, this is a village actually where we have stayed the last 2 nights. You can see there was a church, and I think there was a fortification up there. But there were Templar commanderies all over the south of France, and it was pretty amazing the depth of penetration that the organization had, and you can see why Philip would be threatened by them. So yeah, yesterday we drove through a cloud heading to one of these Templar walled cities. And here you see a newer road where they planted these trees. So that's kind of a long rambling talk about this trip. It's been a fun trip so far. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of kind of dreary weather, which I don't mind at all. It's been warm enough. It's been raining on us quite a bit. And actually, it's funny because we've had a number of people tell us that it's unusual for it to rain as much as it has. But, when the sun breaks out, you get this beautiful landscape like you're seeing here. It's definitely worth being here. And this was later in the day after driving through the fog yesterday. So I guess that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you're doing well. I will talk to you at some point in the not too distant future, and enjoy the winter. And I will just let this driving fade out and upload this video as soon as I can. Best wishes.